This is what you call an unlimited, unconditional guarantee. The U.S. government treats Israel better than they treat its own states. What they're effectively saying is, oy vey, the goyim know. They're saying in 10 years, there's going to be so much noticing that Congress will not give us more money.
Nick Fuentes just slammed a new proposal to give Israel a new aid package from the United States, calling it a slap in our faces. And in this clip, he gets into why they want a 20-year arrangement rather than the traditional 10. So let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Israel is seeking another memorandum of understanding with the United States, and we'll explain exactly what that means, but it's basically shorthand for foreign aid to Israel. That's the mechanism, how Israel gets the foreign aid. And so the current U.S.-Israel foreign aid deal expires in 2028. Under this deal, Israel has been getting $3.8 billion per year for the last 10 years. It's called a Memorandum of Understanding. And the past 3 of them have been 10 years in duration. So Congress passes it, it's good for 10 years. And in this MOU, every year Israel's getting a paycheck. So the current MOU has Israel getting $3.8 billion per year for the last 10 years. The previous one was $3.6 billion for the previous 10 years before that. Well, the Israelis recognize the trouble that they are in. Young people do not support Israel. Young Democrats, young Republicans, the young people do not support Israel. And across the board, people support Israel less than they did 10 years ago. And Israel recognizes this trend is only getting worse. So understandably, they're worried. They're worried that if the MOU is passed this time, maybe the next time when it expires in 2038, by that time, you'll have elected an Israel-critical progressive president or an Israel-critical nationalist president. And maybe they won't want to give Israel another 10 years of aid when the next 10 years are expired.
I think that's exactly right. They don't want a 20-year arrangement because support for Israel is fading away so quickly. And as far as I'm concerned, Nick is right about much of the statistics that he rattled off about the amount of aid going to Israel. And a lot of it has been going on in addition to that. The last 2 years have seen us give about $30 billion to Israel on top of the traditional, $4 billion. Because of October 7th, as Aaron Mate said, nothing justifies October 7th, but in the Hasbara mind, October 7th justifies everything, including unlimited, unconditional aid from our criminal government. That's the truth. And by the way, that aid was upped when Obama solidified the JCPOA as a way to placate Netanyahu, who is enraged that he set up the JCPOA with Iran to check their nuclear program. And this was a means of quelling animosities that would rise up from Israel in this regard. So it just keeps getting more and more. We don't want a 20-year arrangement. We want no arrangement whatsoever, but it's no mystery why they want 20 years.
So Israel is currently seeking a 20-year memorandum of understanding. Israel wants a 20-year deal. They want to lock us in while they have control over our government for the next 20 years. And they want to increase the amount of aid they get every year. So presumably, if they went from 3.6 to 3.8, if history is our guide, then maybe they want to go at least from 3.8 to 4, maybe more than that. A minimum of $4 billion per year for 20 years. For 20 years, they want the United States to commit to giving Israel $4 billion every year. And how do they want us to do it? They want us to give Israel a lump sum of cash as a loan, which we will forgive at the beginning of the year. Why do we do it this way? Because if we give it to them as a lump sum in cash, then that means Israel can use the cash to buy U.S. treasuries and earn interest on the aid that we give them.
This is exactly right. Domestic concerns be damned. This is Israel first, the Israel first mentality, prioritizing Israel above the needs and desires of the United States. This is just so preposterous, and I hope more and more people see through this, especially when many families can't make ends meet. They go to the grocery stores, they see the prices, they see that healthcare is unaffordable, they see the fact that all of this is being squandered in the name of this foreign regime that's committing a genocide on our bankroll. There's a ceasefire now, thankfully. It doesn't seem like it's, contained Israel from killing Palestinians. They've killed over 100 people since then. But that's what's going on. It's senseless. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to do this, and that's why they want these long-term guarantees, to accrue interest, to continue the bombing, to draw the United States into this perverted military alliance that doesn't pay off for the United States whatsoever.
It's all true, all factual. We're going to give them the money at the beginning of the year. Here's your $4 billion pallet of cash. And Israel will take some of the cash. They'll buy U.S. debt so that we're paying interest on the aid that we gave them. We give it to them as a loan and forgive the loan. Because if we gave it as a grant, then we would have oversight over how they spend it. So the benefit of a loan is that we eventually earn the money back. The benefit of a grant, even though we don't earn the money back, is we have oversight over how it's spent. Well, if we give it as a loan and forgive it, we get neither. We don't have the oversight, we don't get the money back.
You can see the game right there that we're playing. There doesn't need to be oversight, and you're going to accrue more and interest on this loan. It's so absurd and twisted and perverted. I just wish more of the American public knew this game that the regime is playing on behalf of Israel.
This is what they do. We actually have to borrow money to give them the lump sum at the beginning of the year. So we're incurring debt to give them money so they can buy our debt, so we pay interest on the loan we're giving them, which we forgive, so that we don't oversee how they spend it. That's how the deal is structured. That's how the current foreign aid works with Israel. This is all in, I believe this is in the Israel Lobby by Mearsheimer and Walt. They write extensively about this. Unlike any other country, Israel gets to spend 25% of the foreign aid on their own domestic defense industry. So people like to say all the time, well, but they spend the foreign aid in America. No, they don't. Every other country has to spend it in America. Israel only has to spend 75% of it in America.
And besides, what does that say about your economic theory, even if it was 100% that they had to spend in America? That means that essentially your economic theory goes to being a power cord plugged into itself. That we spend all these billions on aid to Israel to send it back to, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Northrop Grumman. It's just a transfer in favor of the military-industrial complex. That's not the kind of America I want to be a part of. So if you want to say sending it back to America, no, it's sending it back to the killing machine that's anti-American. That's what it really is.
They have a big domestic defense industry because a quarter of it, which is a significant portion of their federal or their national spending, goes to their own defense department. This is the tremendous deal. So Congress is going to give them a 20-year deal, and think about it. We're broke. The debt just hit $38 trillion. Elon Musk tried to cut the deficit $1 and couldn't. The deficit is going to be $2 trillion. The debt is $38 trillion. We can't pay it back. We have 3% inflation. Federal funds rate is what? It's not zero like it was. You want to get a mortgage, it's 6.5%.
Yeah, and inflation isn't even 3%. That's what the CPI says it is. And the CPI doesn't include all sorts of inflationary commodities that are clearly above 3%, like food and fuel and real estate. New home ownerships aren't included in those figures. But this is what we have to deal with over this perverted Israel first mentality. And even entertaining the idea of a new aid package to Israel is just flat out preposterous. But that's what you get with the uniparty establishment. It's the same thing in the Republican establishment and in the Democrat establishment. There's too few aberrations pushing back against this thing, like Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna and some others. There isn't enough.
50,000 jobs lost. We're in stagflation. The country's broke. Private debt is at an all-time high. Public debt is at an all-time high. Interest on the debt is now one of the biggest expenditures of the U.S. government.
I think it is the biggest. I think it's supplanted even the Pentagon's budget. It's over $1 trillion, just the interest payments on the debt. It's totally unsustainable. It's incredibly unsustainable. And, you know, we have Trump and Hegseth out there boasting about how big the Pentagon budget is. And yeah, we're on a war footing, and it's so great that we've delivered the biggest Pentagon budget ever. You campaigned against intervention. You campaigned against the neocons. You're just the same. Fraud is rampant regardless of who you elect. It's the same with Trump as it was with Biden.
And Congress is going to lock us in for a 20-year deal. Someone that was born now will be 23 years old when we're done paying Israel billions of dollars per year. A congressman who is elected now, who might be 85 years old, is going to sign America up for a 20-year engagement. This is our country. 50-year mortgages and 20-year foreign aid deals, $38 trillion in debt, $2 trillion deficits year over year. This is our country now. This is what you call an unlimited, unconditional guarantee. The U.S. government treats Israel better than they treat its own states. Trump's government is treating Israel better than it treats California.
Can this even be debated at this point, by the way, when North Carolina, you know, during the disaster relief effort a few months back, you know, what it would have to have done to get more attention from the feds would be to just name North Carolina Israel or name North Carolina Ukraine. And this pertains to boycotts, too. People boycott individual American states all the time for whatever policies they might have. Maybe it's gun policy or tax policy or education policy or abortion laws. You know, you can boycott individual American states. But the moment you boycott this foreign regime, you're immediately called an anti-Semite. You're guilty of blood libel. You know, you're a Jew hater. All this nonsense. Americans have had enough. But Nick's right. That's what it's come to. The federal government treats this foreign regime far better than American citizens. This is still under the banner of America First, as the Trump administration proclaims.
Remember when they snuck in a provision that said FEMA won't do search and rescue operations if a city doesn't pledge allegiance to Israel?
Yeah.
There are more conditions on FEMA helping Americans drowning in a hurricane than there are conditions on U.S. military aid to Israel. Think of that.
Think of
Florida gets hit by a hurricane, and America's support for Florida is more conditional and more limited than America's support for Israel killing women and children in Gaza. That's the dynamic. Without limits, without conditions.
That's so true. There's no refuting it. I would love to hear anyone that thinks they have an argument against it put it down below. I don't think you have one. I think Nick's right about this.
And this is, by the way, this is why you need to understand who Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, and Ben Shapiro really are. Ben Shapiro has an Israeli wife. He lives in an all-Jewish neighborhood in South Florida, which is a stronghold for American Jews. He has been a tireless advocate for Israel for 10 years. Josh Hammer used to work for Ben Shapiro. He too has an Israeli wife. He describes himself as a Zionist activist. The two of them are in Israel all the time. You know who else has an Israeli wife? Sean McGuire at Sequoia Capital, one of the leading venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, which provides the seed money, the startup money, for defense technology firms. If you want to start a tech firm, an AI company, some other kind of company that's involved with the DOD or the DOW now, you're going to get money from Sean McGuire or Peter Thiel, who's in bed with Alex Karp.
Yeah, all right, so a few things on this. So first of all, there's no doubt that having a wife would influence you and incentivize you to do things that you wouldn't do without that kind of wife, probably in some cases, in sympathy toward where she's from or the government from which she's from. But it's not their wives that's the problem. I would have the same problems with acting as a foreign operative for Israel, whether they had an Israeli wife or not. I don't think Lindsey Graham doesn't have a wife. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And I, would denounce him for the exact same thing. These people are foreign operatives for Israel, but who they choose as a wife is inconsequential. Maybe that influences their direction in that way. But I think these people were far pro-Israel before they had Israeli wives, too. That's a little bit tangential to me, and I don't think it really, states the case the best way. I have a problem with all Israel firsters.
These people that love Israel. Now, when in the United States, you have people at the colleges saying, we don't like giving all this money to Israel, that's a big problem. Because those people that are working at Heritage Foundation, working or in college at Harvard or Yale or Columbia, they're in a congressional office. These people are going to become the political class, and their voice is amplified in the political system. And if you have enough of those people, then that unconditional, unlimited partnership that the U.S. has with Israel starts to have some limits, starts to have some conditions. Are you starting to get it? Israel says, we're worried that in 10 years, we're not going to get another deal because of how much people are turning on Israel in Washington and in America. This is why they're buying the media. This is why Larry Ellison bought TikTok. It's why Barry Weiss is the head of CBS.
Totally agree with him on this. The writing is on the wall of that. Every poll suggests it. There is a demographic shift away from support for Israel, especially among younger people. They're seeing this door slowly shut on their entire aspirations for greater Israel. And they think that, hey, in 10 years, we might not have an opportunity to extend this thing. Let's try to extend it now 20 years and with less inhibitions, less limitations that even disaster relief has to try to keep the money flow going into our regime. That's why they want this now. I hope people take notice of this. It needs to be blasted out there. I'm with Nick on this 100%.
That's why David Ellison bought CBS for his media company. This is why Heritage and all these college Republican groups are looking for the Groypers. And that's all Shapiro and Josh Hammer and Lonsdale and McGuire and Alex Karp. That's all these people really care about. It is about Israel. They say it's about everything else. They say, oh, it's about his rhetoric. It's about Nick Fuentes being a Nazi. It's about Western civilization. They say it's about everything else. But for them, it's only about this. Israel is coming to us looking for more money, which they require. Their military is dependent on the foreign aid. And they know that if the political climate in America is skeptical or critical of the U.S.-Israel relationship, they can't count on the money. Now, what are they doing in response to it? Well, they're using the Trump administration. The Trump administration is their vehicle. They're using it like it's an... What they're effectively saying is, oy vey, the goyim know, in 10 years, no one can stop the noticing. They're saying in 10 years, there's going to be so much noticing that Congress will not give us more money. So we need to get as much money as we can now. We need a 20-year deal.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They see the writing on the wall. The independent media is going away from them very quickly, by the way. The same old games to shut people's conversation down just by labeling them anti-Semites. It isn't working anymore. But there's no chief Zionist voice out there to say, hey guys, regroup, come back to the huddle, let's re-strategize. Not so whatsoever. They just try to buy everything out and keep doubling down on the blood libel, anti-Semitism, there's a Holocaust around the corner. All this nonsense, and it isn't working. It's being played out so much that Americans are starting to treat that the same way that they rightly treated just being shouted down as racists and transphobes and homophobes, by the other side of the political establishment when that was a big thing. I guess it still is to some extent now, but mostly Americans have sussed that out for exactly what it is. They're starting to do that with Israel. That is what the Zionist world mind frame comes down to. It's prioritizing this regime even above your own communities, your own countries. That's why there's a disparity and more limitations, as Nick said, with federal disaster relief than there is aid to Israel. So I say no more aid to Israel. I say shut all of it down. Bring all the troops in the Middle East home. We've had enough of this stupid, entangling alliance of the very kind that the best founders warned us against. Like Thomas Jefferson said in his first inaugural address when he said, you know, our American creed should be peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. George Washington similarly, warned about the dangers of foreign entanglements in his farewell address. That is what America needs more than ever right now. That kind of mindset, that kind of virtue, the kind of virtue that had us keep out of world affairs and world wars essentially for about a century under the Monroe Doctrine. That's what we need. But we're not going to get it through the Israel first mentality in either party, whether you brand it Make America Great Again or Hope and Change. You're not going to get it that way. We have to get it through pushing back at the central government through nullification. We have to open up people's minds through education campaigns. Thankfully, the new media is doing that on a level that I haven't seen before in my lifetime, not whatsoever. But I do want to hear from you. Do you think Nick is right about this? Is this why they want a new arrangement of the kind of 20 years? Should Americans just say no? When are America's political class finally going to shut the door on the Israel first mentality? Is it going to be by 2028? Could we see a presidential nomination process that doesn't elevate a Zionist by 2028? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you like this video also, please consider joining as a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. And if you do so, I will give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. So you'll be able to see those members only videos right away if you do that. And also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. I'll shoot that off to you for free via email and PDF form. No obligations, no cost whatsoever. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.